This conference will now be recorded.
It's 6 o'clock. The meeting of the Rome City Council for February 22nd, 2024 will now come to order. We do have a quorum. Start out with our invocation. Pastor Van Zant is not going to be with us this evening, so I've asked Mrs. Beecraft, commander of the Rome Veterans, to do our invocation.
If everyone would bow their heads. Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over everyone and provide wisdom and guidance for the council to make the decisions that are best for the city. We just pray that everyone stays safe and keep us protected. In Jesus' name, amen.
Oh, whoa, whoa. All right, public comments. Council is not permitted to take action or discuss any comments made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. However, they may make a statement of fact regarding the item or policy. They may also ask that the item be placed on a future agenda or direct the city administrator to contact the individual to address. Public comments require the speaker to submit the sign-up form to the city secretary prior to the meeting and are limited to 3 minutes. Form must identify each subject the speaker plans to present. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult or slander any individual shall be cause for removal from council chambers. What do you have?
Up first, we have Jonathan King.
Please.
My first time here, so I'm just learning. I'm from Denton. So, okay. So I purchased a parcel of land off of West First Street here in the original town of Rome about a year ago from a gentleman who owns several properties here, and was told that it was perfectly ready to go to build a house on, and looked at the GIS map and saw several other properties in the area that were narrow like this one is. It is a narrow property, and saw that there were buildings on them, so I figured, okay, should be good to go. And about a year later, I got around to getting plans done and everything, and submitted it, and found out that I can't build on that because it doesn't meet the minimum square footage for the zoning in the neighborhood. So now I'm stuck with a lot, and my kids and my grandkids and everyone after me are stuck with a lot that I can't do anything with. And so it happens to be that there is a large field at the side of the lot where I believe the council is looking into a bond for a well to be built there in that field, in that land. It was originally, I think, Elm Street way back when in the city plan, but that was scrapped for some reason, and now it's just vacant land owned by the city. So what I am requesting is about a 15-foot extension or whatever would be needed to allow me to build a normal single-family home on the land. It's a 5,200 square foot. I got like 5 copies. I didn't know how many I needed. Apparently, I needed more. And it's a 5,250 square foot lot. And there's other lots in the neighborhood just right down the street that are 7,000 square foot with a house on it, and there's others that are 10,000 square foot with a house on it. And I even attached some that have smaller lots than mine, 4,000 square foot lots, even under 2,000 square foot lots that have very tiny homes on them that were built maybe in the 50s or 60s. So I'm just requesting to have us just replat this piece of land and give me square footage I would be willing to purchase from the city so that I can go to see it. I have plans that would barely fit on this lot, but there's no front door. You have to go out the side of the house to get to the backyard because it's a completely shotgun style house because we had to make it fit on this narrow lot. So I'm just asking for an extra 15 feet, which would go towards the well that's planning to be built. As long as it's still within the setback restrictions and you can build the well that you want to build there, I would love to be able to purchase that sliver of land and allow me to build a house on the land. It is under, apparently I need 10,000 square foot according to zoning, SF10. But I'd like to be able to build on maybe a 7,000 lot, if you would be so kind.
Yeah, your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can't take action tonight. We'll ask the city administrator to reach out to you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next up.
Next up, we have Josh McCabe.
Good evening, Josh McCabe, Crown Point. Council, I think that electronic signage would be a great communication tool for this community. The only thing we need to look at, though, is find a permanent spot for it. If we put it at the current city hall, that's a temporary location. If we are unable to extend our lease, we would then be out the sign unless we pay to move it. One suggestion is that in the past, with meetings with business owners, Jazz, the owner of the gas station, has offered up his old Grandy sign for the city to use for a new electronic sign. So that's one possible location. Or perhaps we can find another central location. In the past, the pharmacy has also offered its electronic sign to put out notices for the city. While signage is a great way to get information out, the major concern of the last attempt at mass notification, people waking up won't see those signs and will not know about a water boil or whatever it may be. So yes, a mass text notification would be beneficial in addition to signage. Ms. Ty can correct me if I'm wrong, but the problem with the code red in the past is we weren't getting the best bang for our buck. Perhaps it's because not enough people signed up. Some said it was unclear or user friendly. Perhaps we didn't have the necessary staffing to commit the time to proper operation of the system. We can pay for it, but then people still have to register. People will have to be proactive. In the end, the city can do as much as they can with the funds that they have to reach its citizens in emergency situations. We must remember that we are all adults and need to do our own due diligence as well. It's easy to blame City Hall for not telling us at 4 a.m. that there's no FOIL notice, but we just don't have the staffing and the tools to handle sending text or door-to-door like people were suggesting. Even if we did, there's still going to be someone who says that they didn't know. In the end, let's find a place and get an electronic sign, perhaps some of the other signage mentioned in the package. But the most useful tool would be some sort of mass texting, assuming people sign. I appreciate the city stepping up to make sure its citizens are aware of one-off emergencies, but we also need to remember we are adults and we need to be a little thinking and due diligence on our own in times of emergencies. Thank you.
Next, we have Gregory Smith.
Good evening. Mayor Mitchell, City Council members, listed on. My name is Greg Smith. My address is 131 Mountain Lane, Rhome, Texas. My wife and I are sponsoring the third annual mayoral and city council debate for those candidates who are running for City of Rhome, the City of Rhome election Saturday, May 4th, 2024. The debate will be held April 20, 2024, between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Rhome United Methodist Church. And that's west of First Street, Rhome, Texas. Candidates for mayor, as well as city council places 4 and 5, are invited to participate in a single moderator debate. The debate moderator will be announced in the future. We look forward to seeing you and everyone else and all the candidates. Thank you.
Up next, we have Sam Eason.
Good evening. My subject is Family Park resident user fees. Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Sam Easton with 1107 Mount Lane. In the council meeting on the evening of February 8th, with regard to Agenda Item 7, Family Park resident user fees, the implication was to discuss the fees applied to residents in general. This was not discussed. There was a bait and switch. The mayor immediately called upon a single citizen to plead for a waiver for a citizen event. There was no discussion that the city of Rome would be paying for all the fees out of our tax dollars. There was no opportunity for other citizens to speak in support of or opposition to the city choosing to fund an individual's event. Yes, I gladly acknowledge a citizen putting on an Easter egg hunt. It sounds like a community event. It is a private event put on to support the community. If the city wants to promote and fund events, the city needs to discuss events in general, and then an Easter egg hunt specifically. Action was taken on an item not properly posted on the agenda. Shame on you, council, for allowing yourselves to be duped. On Friday, February 16th, it was revealed the person putting on the event is running for city council. The city must not fund an event for a candidate. The mayor set up the bait and switch with her deceptive agenda topic. She has also since declared to be running for re-election. This will clearly be a campaign event funded by the city. This needs to be corrected. In general, before we start funding events, how about funding the issues we have in Rome? Let's use our money for roads, facility upgrades, infrastructure violation mitigation. Let this council candidate hold pay for their own.
Up next, we have Tommy Eason.
Good evening to all. My name is Tommy Eason. I reside at 1107 Mount Lane. Tonight I would like to discuss the bonds that are going on this year's election. A, $3 million is for the clay pipes to be repaired. Most of the older areas in town need work. People had to boil their water at times. This is no way to live. It is past time to have updated pipes in Old Town Rome. B, $2.5 million is for drilling wells for water. Last year, we all went through the water shortage. We were restricted on uses of water. This should let the citizens know how desperately we need water, mostly when our water source, Walnut Creek, is letting us go in 2029. That does not give us much time to make alternate plans on our water. We all need water. C, $11 million is for the West Side wastewater plant. I have been hearing this since I have moved here. The council and staff have done all the investigating and research on this for years. It is time for the citizens to put the money out there and finally resolve this problem. We have to have all three items taken care of. We have talked long enough about all these problems. It is time to bite the bullet and take care of the damaging issues. They are not going to go away. They are just going to haunt us down the road when prices just keep getting higher. I do not understand what Ms. Mitchell is saying about people on fixed income. The vast majority of these people have their tax rate frozen. Therefore, their tax won't go up if this bond passes. She's just trying to scare people. Thank you for your consideration.
Next, we have Deborah Beecraft.
I'm Deborah Beecraft. I live at 360 West 2nd. I just wanted to thank our administrator for bringing my idea to the council on putting a mural on the old water tank, water tower behind the old city hall as a way to promote tourism. I hope soon we can also act on that and on the other idea of the point of interest historical markers around the city. I think both of those, and since it's tourist related, it can come out of the hotel motel tax. So you're not going to have to budget for that. But those historical markers, when we did the history tour, we had people come in even from Justin because they read about it and they love coming on history tours. So it would be a way, do a brochure, have your points of interest, have a little map in there. They drive all over town, they stop and eat, they buy gas, they spend money here, which gives us more sales tax. So I think it's a good way to promote our town, to promote some tourism, and start getting Rome seen in a more positive light. Thank you. And thank you again, Amanda, for bringing that to the council's attention.
Next up, we have Donna DeGarmo.
Donna DeGarmo. I'm 104 Kensington Court. I've been saying hotel now lately, so it's kind of confusing. But anyhow, my comments tonight are, one of them is debate. I just hope and pray that our citizens open their eyes, come to this debate, listen to people, what they have to say, and know what they stand for. Our town is growing. There's no stopping it. It can't stop. And we have to have council members that are proactive and willing to take chances and get this town going. Because if we don't, we're just going to be this little shriveled up thing in the middle of nowhere. So that's one of the things. The debate is so very important. Please, please come and see what your people stand for and ask questions. And then I kind of have to disagree with Sam a little bit. Our park is wonderful. Our park is for everybody. And I do agree with the fact that it would probably become a political thing because usually it's put on by our mayor and some of her helpers. But in the same token, we shouldn't punish our kids because of something like that. I mean, it was for our kids. And if we have to go and kind of follow the politicians, maybe we should do that. And make sure they don't talk about re-election and things like that. Hopefully there's a way we can stop the political part and go for the kids. So that is it. And then last but not least, I have been fortunate enough to be able to be part of the police academy, the inaugural, and it is amazing. And I can't tell anybody how much all of our officers, their training, their credentials, their desire to help one another and be a team and work for Rome. I mean, I can't believe we have these kind of people in our town, but we do. That's number one. And we should do anything and everything we can to support them. I mean, in the past, I've always been, oh, I'm so thankful you go down and check my neighborhood, which I am. And I usually see at least one officer one time a day checking my neighborhood. But these guys have so much more on their plate. And, just listening to that first class was like inspiring, number one. And I pray that we continue in this direction. And I think with Chief Davis leading, we will. In my time.
End of public comment.
The council have any announcements? Anybody from council? Okay. Citizens Police Academy each Tuesday evening in March. March 4th, 2024, Planning and Zoning meeting. March 5, monthly bulk trash pickup. March 14th, 2024, council meeting. March 23rd, 2024, that's the Easter egg hunt. This is actually the third year in a row that, and yeah, I am involved. I'm the bunny, because nobody would wear the bunny suit the first year. And so, but yeah, this is the third year in a row that we've done the Easter egg hunt. And knock on wood, we've had a really good turnout, good show of kids and family in years past. That will be at the family park. March 28th, 2024, council meeting. March 29th, city office closed to observe Good Friday. Consent agenda 1 and 2, approval of council minutes from February 8th, 2024, approval of council minutes from February 10th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Monthly staff reports, board minutes, any comments on that? Okay. The public hearing that's on here, this has been postponed till March 14th at 6 p.m. Read it? Okay, very good. Getting instruction here from the city attorney. Rome City Council is to conduct a public hearing to consider a replat and variance request, one tract being legally described as tract acres A634 MEP and PRR 1.0270 acres and lot 1 through 6, block 23, original town Rome, also described as located at 250 BC Rome Avenue, Rome, Texas. We do have to open the meeting 6:22, public hearing at 6:22, and if there's anyone here. Okay. Okay. And this is going to be postponed till March 14th at 6 p.m. And we'll close the public hearing also at 6:22. We'll move along to the regular agenda. That will absolve the necessity of item 1 on the agenda. Number 2 is the text dot, and the person that I have been speaking with, she's had a death in her family, so I will table that again until she's back at her desk and got through her stuff. Number 3, approval for the renewal of the annual interlocal contract with the Texas Department of Public Safety for the failure to appear / failure to pay program.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a routine item of business. We renew this contract each time it comes up for renewal with TxDOT. What it does is it allows the municipal court to place a hold on a defendant's driver's license if they fail to tend to their business within the municipal court. It's just another way to kind of compel them to come in before the judge in order to get their cases adjudicated. So we would ask that council pass the ILA so that we can re-enter into that agreement.
I make a motion to approve the renewal of the annual interlocal contract DPS for failure to appear, failure to pay program.
I'll second.
In favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 4, interlocal with Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District.
That's difficult to say fast when you get going, but I think you all heard Jill Garcia come and speak to us about this particular issue. This is something that the city managers for Wise County have been discussing based on the new requirements of Senate Bill 2440, that anyone who is putting in a development with X number of homes, and I believe it's 10 or more, they do have to go through this process of having a certification statement prepared that shows that there's adequate groundwater underneath the property from which to serve said development. Since the city of Rome does not have water engineers on staff, or do we want those, we want to make sure that we have a partnership with Upper Trinity to handle that particular process for us. It will not cost the city anything. We would adjust our fee schedule. The developer would pay for this particular report. They would also submit it to Upper Trinity. and the Texas Water Development Board. It would be evaluated from them as to whether that capacity exists. They would give the information back to council. This would apply to any property that's being developed that, as I said, that has multiple homes on it, both in the city limits and in the ETJ. So you do have the ILA in your packet. This has been approved by New Fairview, and I think you will also see several other cities in Wise County making that same move to approve that agreement with them.
First, I'd just like to commend the city administrator and other members of the council for working with the other communities to try to solve the water crisis. And with that, I make a motion to approve the interlocal with Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, council. I know that I've talked to Mr. Shaw, who is the director of Upper Trinity, and I've talked with Ms. Garcia just this week, and they will be very pleased to hear that. I think they're a great resource for Rhome.
And number 5 and number 8, I'm told by the city administrator are duplicates. So we'll talk about number 5.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a follow-up to the item that we had on the agenda the last time about the rainwater harvesting grant that is available through Upper Trinity as well. I have filled out the applications. You had them in your packet. They have been at least cursory reviewed by Ms. Garcia at Upper Trinity. The only thing that we're waiting on now is the actual bids from the contractors who would install the system. So you have one grant request for an installation system at the park that would allow us to capture rainwater off of the pavilion and or the restroom house, depending upon how the contractor can lay that out, that we could use to water. Or we could also use to offset the trees that need to be watered, the plants that are in the flower beds, etc. And so that would be a nice boon for us. The second one is for the fire station that would allow them to capture the rainwater off of this building that could be used to fill up the trucks or wash the trucks, things of that nature. So what we would be looking for this evening is the authority, once we get the bids in, for the city administrator to submit the application request to Upper Trinity. Their deadline is February the 29th. So you will not meet again between now and then. So I have these application and agreements in front of you so you could review. The only thing I would need to drop in is the bid numbers from the consultants once we get those. Mr. Dominguez has reached out to all of Upper Trinity's recommendations or recommended contractors, and I think a couple of others to try and get some additional bids because we have to have that before we turn it in.
Then I'll make a motion for the city administrator to submit the application for rainwater harvesting. The wording you need.
Yes, ma'am.
The harvesting grant program application.
I'll second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, number 6, evaluation of communication methods for city notifications.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that we have discussed more than once. You will recall that part of this was the ARPA monies that we talked about, and the idea, as Mr. McCabe brought up, the electronic sign being placed on City Hall, and the surprise from when I had originally last priced one of those, the price has doubled. So we brought it back to council during some of our capital improvement conversations, and I was asked to do a bit more research and see what might exist for us in that area. So you have a couple of options in your agenda commentary that was provided in your packet. We have used in the past Code Red. I found the last invoices in 2019 and 2020 for approximately $1,900 in each year, so just under $2,000. That we had signed up with that system to allow for that emergency messaging type. I wasn't in Rome at the time, so I'm not exactly sure why those contracts were canceled. I did not find that in our records. I have been told that, to Mr. McCabe's point, that there were some challenges getting signed up for that process. In talking with our utility billing manager, she stated that we had several folks who are not as technologically astute as, or should I say familiar, as some other folks may be, that would come in and she would help sign them up, which was very good and something that we would want to offer again if we go that direction. But if that is seen as a barrier, then we might not have as many people sign up for that type of a system. It is a little bit more expensive than some of the other options that exist for that same type of service. So I would bring to council's attention the fact that the county also has an emergency alert system that we can potentially subscribe to. When I talked to Mr. Powell, he thought the price would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $750 a year. That would allow us to augment. So they have where you can sign up already as a resident for emergency alerts for your general area in Wise County. But they could add a component to that that would allow us to send out text messages in addition to for things such as boil water notices or water restrictions, etc. Because it is true that currently Rome only has Facebook and the city's website from which to communicate. We also have the monthly newsletter, which I send out, and so far I've only had about 20 people sign up for that electronically. So we are challenged in reaching some of our residents. I think Facebook is fairly beneficial because it seems like when I post something on the city's official page, it gets reposted to 5 or 6 ancillary pages that have to do with the city of Rome. It's not an official communication method, but it does help. Even though we'd been in stage 3 water restrictions for 3 or 4 months, and there were a couple of posts when it was lifted and we went back to stage 2 of some residents saying, I never knew we were in stage 3. So we're going to have that going through just because people are busy and they have other things to tend to. But we do need to augment our communication systems with our residents. It's just what's the best bang for the buck at the moment. So you could go with the county. We could also add a module onto our new website platform. Council made a motion and approved an evolution of our current website, which will come embedded in that program, an ability for us to send out bulk emails, which we don't have now. And we can pay an additional $900 a month, or excuse me, not a month, a year for that system that would also allow the text messaging. It would do both simultaneously, which would be very nice. It just depends on which direction council wants to go if they want to add that texting capability that we don't currently have. Now, there are going to be some limitations because we are not deeply staffed, and so sometimes Facebook posts are missed, sometimes we get busy and we don't get everything out there, but we will do our utmost to use the system and make sure that we are helping to communicate with folks, because I did see some feedback on social media that just the website and Facebook is not sufficient, and I agree. We have some residents that reached out personally by phone. They were very gracious, but they did express their frustration with the current systems that we have in place. So I would encourage us to consider one of those two, either an upgrade to our website platform and or the county. Now, I did include in your packet a little overview of Code Red. This would not be my first recommendation to you just because it's more expensive. And we've tried it apparently already. So if we went with the county or the website, I think it would do the same type of a thing. I also put in here some signs that Mr. Dominguez priced that I would highly recommend to council that we consider these, not only for mandatory water conservation, but also for boil water notices. One of the things that I found when I came on staff here was the last time we had a boil water notice, the city hall staff sat with cardboard and markers and made the signs. That's not sufficient for our community. So we need to have hardened signs that can withstand the weather that people can actually see. And these come in a variety of sizes. It wouldn't all print on this piece of paper, but I would recommend some at the 4x4 size, which allows us to put those out with T-posts, and then some of these 2x3s that could be placed around town in a variety of spots. Now, of course, when we posted, or excuse me, when we priced these, what was it, Mr. Dominguez, last August, the prices have changed, so we will need to get some pricing on that. He had reached out to the vendors, but we have not heard back from them as of yet, so we may need to get a couple additional bids, but that is another avenue that I would recommend. Now, to the electronic sign, it's certainly at council's discretion. We can go either direction. I do know that the city of Boyd has had great luck with their sign. They have a tremendous amount of people, of course, that go up and down 114 in and out of Boyd every day, so it catches the eye. If council wants to step into this process and say we go with either the website or the county upgrade first and these signs, we can certainly try that and consider, see how that does. But my concern is, for instance, like the electronic newsletter and other things, if people aren't willing to share their email address or sign up for it, it's not going to be as effective as we're hoping. So those are the options that we have that I know of currently. If council has any other suggestions, I'm happy to hear those as it relates to expanding those communication methods.
Amanda, what would be the ETA on the website? So you said that we've approved some funds to
So the
improve the
platform
website.
is already in process. The holdup is honestly staff time to get it rebuilt because we have to provide all the content to the to the website builder. And so that is, I have a 2-week delay between this council meeting and the next one. So I'm hopeful to make some progress on it, but I'm thinking 8 to 16 weeks before that's put into place.
I do like the signs in the neighborhoods that tell people when they're entering, exiting the neighborhoods, what's going on, if it's a mandatory water restrictions, or if there's pool notice, then they know right when they go in. I also think the internet is a good option because people are on the internet, but I also think that that website, the texting on the website, or either the county, whichever one, or would you want to do both, or are they just kind of duplicates?
I think you're duplicating your
Yeah.
efforts at that point. I like the website platform because it's all currently self-contained within what we're doing. I think Mr. Powell does a great job for the emergency alerts, but I don't know what his staffing levels are like. If we have a boil water notice, does he have the time to tend to that? I don't know because I've not had a chance to sit down and really speak with him yet. I mean, that is a possibility. He did not know for sure. He said the last time he priced for the city of Rome, it was $750. So you're not really much difference in cost one way or the other. There are some other things that I would like to bring to council signage wise that I saw in another community as it relates to solicitors. And so I will bring back to you, hopefully in the next little bit of time, I'd like to see us post some permanent signage in a variety of spots that it clearly notates that soliciting is not permitted unless you have a permit from the city. And that way residents can point to the sign and say, you need to contact City Hall before you come knocking on my door. And of course, a lot of the solar panel sellers are a big deal. I know Crown Point suffers from that tremendously. And I think if we could do something creative and we put those permanent signs out there, I think that might at least ward off some folks.
Amanda, if we were to approve some funds for the signage specifically, for the physical signs, just because that is a safety issue with boiling water and the state of our water. So what budget line does that come from?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think that we have budgeted that directly. However, if you do not use the electronic sign option, you have that $15,000 of ARPA money that you could allocate to these efforts.
I think that maybe we delay the electronic sign and see how these other forms of communication might work. Maybe those are a good option, and then later on we can do the electronic sign. But I don't know. I don't know what y'all are thinking on that.
I agree with that, and I'm in favor of going ahead and like allotting an amount not to exceed $3,000.
So do you just want to get bids for those and find out how much those are, and then come back to us at the next meeting?
Yeah,
or?
I think these signs are probably going to be pretty close, Mrs. King, to that number. And that would be my concern because we have several entrance and exit points, so we're going to need a lot of these. I mean, more than just 2 or 3. So if you'd let me get some bids and bring it back to you, I think we still have enough time before we hit the busy water season. Hopefully that would not be such an issue. What I really needed was direction on the electronic sign and whether you wanted to go with the county or the website module. I'm happy to go either direction, just bringing that to your attention.
I mean, I would say website for sure.
Website module allow us to text things other than emergency
Yes.
things.
Yes,
So if we were having an event, fire station,
correct.
something like that.
Absolutely. That's all I needed really was direction.
Can you click on that to see who's online? Thank you. Okay. Number 7, Bond Committee. That's Randall Loftus.
Okay, what I intend to do is make 3 points about why committees are needed in the city, and then go back and talk a little bit about it. And then I have a motion to establish a bond oversight committee that I'd like to make the motion, or at least put it on the table and wait till the next meeting to actually have a vote. So we have time to think about it, get organized, perhaps put together an ordinance to establish a committee. So that's how I'm going to proceed here. You know, I can think of 3 very good reasons, and hopefully I can remember, of why we need a bond committee, or perhaps another committee also. One is sunshine laws. A couple of weeks ago, I found out that, you know, our council members, we really can't go to the bathroom together. And so it's almost like it's not sunshine laws. They're almost like I would call them mushroom laws. But small cities like ours, in a place where we can't even get together and discuss the status of city properties. And let's just put that in retrospect with developers. Developers can grab a bag of donuts and coffee every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 a year, and they can go and they could talk about all city properties all day long, all they want. Puts us at a severe disadvantage for planning for growth. So that's one reason to have a committee. The other is continuity. We're sitting up here with 2-year terms, and a lot of these bond issues they all cover multiple years. So when you're looking for oversight for bonds, this really isn't the place it's going to occur, because there's no continuity for that term. Third reason that I can see historically in Rome, that citizens really distrust the city government when it comes to managing their money and that oversight for those bond funds. So for those reasons, I see where we need a method to span the term limitation issue. We need a method to overcome the sunshine laws, and we need a method to assure results of bond issues assured by these committee members. So a bond oversight committee would help with all 3 of these items. And so other cities have them. It's not uncommon. What you want to know about these committees is that as long as they serve an advisory role to the council, they don't have any decision-making authority, they are exempt from sunshine laws. So here's an example mission statement for a bond committee of, actually it's a large city in Texas. I just happened to find it. Ensure efficiency, equity, timeliness, and accountability in the implementation of existing and future city bond programs. The Commission shall monitor the city manager's plans relating to the issuance of bonds and the implementation of projects approved in bond elections, including the review of future potential bonds, the annual appropriation of bond funds, and any changes in the amount of bond funds issues or cash commitments made. I would see a bond committee hopefully be composed of citizens. It could possibly contain 1 or 2 council members. Got to be careful with that, because it could be construed as a quorum. And I would hope that these will be individuals within the community, perhaps someone with a construction background, someone with financial background, folks who currently have an interest in overseeing in what's going on in our city relative to spending funds. I think of some of the folks on Facebook. And they will be free to meet on their own on, I would suggest, at least a monthly basis, and then report back to the council with any suggestions. Of course, as a bond committee, they would also have the ability to educate the community about what is being accomplished. So I have this motion that I can read, and like I said, I'm willing to table it immediately following any discussion. And I also have an example of an ordinance, which I'm sure Carvin's already very familiar with. And perhaps Carvin could bring us an ordinance to the next meeting and we could vote it. So here's the motion. I move that the city of Rome create a committee of citizens to ensure efficiency, equity, timeliness, and accountability in the implementation of existing and future city bond programs. The bond committee should be comprised of between 5 and 7 citizens. No more than 2 members can be from the city elected positions. This bond committee should meet at least once monthly to monitor the issuance of bonds and implementation of projects approved in bond elections, including the review of future potential bonds. The creation of a bond committee will be codified by a municipal ordinance. I had some other thoughts on this where, I don't know, this is a multi-year commitment for these people, potentially. And I don't know if it's a situation where we might want to pay these folks on a per meeting basis, some sort of stipend. And I mean, I trust them to oversee these bonds and to report back to the citizens on the effectiveness of the city and how it is carrying out these things. So that's my motion. You can discuss it, and I would suggest we table it for a couple of weeks.
So I guess I would like to know what your idea of how that meeting goes when there's a bond committee. Is staff included? I mean, who all has to be part of this, and what does it entail?
Do we need a second before we start to discuss?
That'd probably be best. Go ahead and second.
All right, I'll second the motion.
Well, for the city I have here, the example ordinance talks about the duties of the bond committee. So I can read the ordinance. This is an ordinance from the city of Austin.
From Austin. Okay.
You like your?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Bond Oversight Commission. The council creates the Bond Oversight Commission to ensure efficiency, equity, timeliness, and accountability in the implementation of existing and future city bond programs. The commission shall monitor the city manager's, the administrator in our case, plans relating to the issuance of bonds and the implementation of projects approved in bond elections, including the review of future potential bonds, the annual appropriation of bond funds, and any changes in the amount of bond funds issued or cash commitments made. The mayor and council shall work with the commission to set priorities and goals of each new bond issue to be submitted to the voters. The commission shall advise the council on proposed bonds and the implementation of projects approved in bond elections. The council shall appoint at least 3 members to the commission who have training of professional experience in financial matters. So it would, I mean, it takes some leadership, someone to drive these meetings. I see. I mean, I guess that's what you're getting at.
I'm just trying to figure out if staff is going to have to go to these meetings also.
So this sounds similar to a format that we had whenever I was working with the school district. And so I don't know how comfortable I feel about the word oversight. In my mind, that kind of smells a little bit of distrust. But I do love the idea of having some type of long-range planning committee, because you're exactly right. You need to have some group that is looking over a longer period of time, and it can't just be council because of the time constraints on council. So in my experience with long-range planning from a school district perspective, we had volunteer people. We are pulling together the long-range planning committee for the whatever school year, and we are looking for people who are interested in joining that committee. And so people could express interest, and then so many from each group were chosen. Only so many administrators, council members, only so many realtors from the community, so many financial planners, people from different varied background. And then it really helped for the city administrator, for our, in the school district side, for our superintendents and assistant superintendents to be able to discuss the vision, to explain the growth problems that we have to a group of people who are not on council, but who could then serve in an advisory capacity. So for that, I am very much in favor.
Yes, I do love the long-term planning aspect of it, for sure. I'm concerned about the oversight, but you said that they would have no decision-making abilities, and they wouldn't be up at City Hall trying to tell city staff what to do with bonds is what's going through my head right now.
Yeah, really what I envision being more of a format where obviously they're going to have to invite the city administrator in to report on things, public works director, whoever's involved with these bonds, and managing their implementation. They may meet and decide, everyone's really overloaded. We may need to hire a project manager to help us out. And they would have no decision-making authority. That allows them to not be subject to sunshine laws. And then they would come and be an advisory role to report to the council with their ideas.
I would like to have some input from the staff also in regards to it before we take a vote on it. And I know you said it'd be a couple of weeks, but yes.
In my experience, it was the staff that was responsible for kind of organizing the meetings, getting the emails out. And so that is a challenge with the staff the size of ours. Amanda?
So just to clarify a couple of things, staff doesn't run the bonds. We don't run the project. We generally have a construction manager at risk who runs all of that, and they would be reporting back directly to council. Can we do something like this? Absolutely we can. If that's council's direction, that's not an issue to put that in place. I would be concerned if it is another meeting on top of the regional water meeting that I'm a part of now, the regional mayor's meetings, 2 council meetings, planning and zoning, and then getting the day-to-day work done. That if they're meeting monthly, if they're meeting every other month, might not be such a big deal. And maybe at the beginning it's more labor intensive than it is as we go along. But I do 100% agree that we need a set of ambassadors, if you will, for the community that could help provide factual information about capital needs and bonds, because we have a lot of misinformation as it relates to that. And the bonds that you have on the agenda now are the tip of the iceberg for what this community is going to need over the next 10 to 20 years. And whatever we can do to increase transparency for folks so that they feel and understand where their money's going, how it's being used, what the benefit is to the city, absolutely should look into that. Because one of my thoughts on this was that we were going to talk about town hall meetings as it relates to the bonds that are coming forward, because that's something I think council ought to consider empowering staff to put together, because I'm sure people are going to have questions, and I'm very used to doing those type or conducting those type of meetings in my previous city. We would actually go into people's homes, and a family in the community would host it and would invite some of their neighbors, and we'd stand sometimes for 2 or 3 or 4 hours just answering questions about the community itself and educating the residents. And it really provided that personal touch, if you will. So I would suggest to council that if you're going to go with Mr. Loftus's suggestion, that we also consider some other avenues to help augment this, because I don't know how formal this would be. I don't know if from the set of Mr. Loftus' statement of sunshine laws, what you're referencing, if you're talking about violations of the OMA from the standpoint of when they can meet and when they can't. I don't know. Carbon would have to tell you how those rules are going to apply.
Yeah, I look at it more from the standpoint, if we're going to meet and have a creative discussion about growth in the city, this may not be the best forum. And back there in that room for 15 minutes is not the best forum.
Agreed, but I will say that most city councils use a workshop format, which is the same as a regular meeting, to have that creative conversation, because it ultimately is council's decision on anything capital related. But can you put them both together? Yes, we certainly can do that.
Well, yeah, and I originally, when I was thinking this through, I had thoughts of the bond committee and also some sort of a economic development committee. I mean, I really view those as two separate roles. One planning and one oversight. I call it oversight.
Some of you are looking at me like you have a question, but I haven't heard one. So.
Well, actually, I do, because I
Fire-
realized
fire
that
away-
this
fire
would,
away.
these people would serve in an advisory position, but it would be the council that actually appoints them. And I am concerned about advocating for bonds.
Can't do that. The committee wouldn't be allowed to advocate for the passage of the bond.
I see.
But
That's
the committee,
my concern. You know,
if the committee's an advisory committee, that it's not subject to the posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act. So as long as we don't have a quorum of the elected officials present, then you could have up to the 2 proposed council members be on the committee itself. Of course, if a 3rd council member shows up to listen in, now you've created a problem. So we'll have to watch that and see how you do that. If you create just a citizens committee, then the council members can show up. But again, you want to avoid the accidental quorum of having 3 show up.
in an advisory committee appointed by the council, are you saying that advocacy is okay or not okay?
No, in any expenditure of the city's dollars, and I have to confess, I'm assuming that if you involve staff, if you involve public facilities, if you involve electricity for the lights, that's a expenditure of public funds. And those funds can't be used to advocate for the passage of a bond. So the committee could, the oversight part of it, I'm not particularly troubled with that word. That would be fine. Providing the citizens with information, education about what the bonds, what the city's needs are, all of those kinds of things, I don't believe automatically have to be advocacy. Some people might disagree with that, but I mean, that's a fine line there. As long as you're just giving the facts, you're stating budgetary issues, financial issues, that's not advocacy usually. So a committee would be able to do that. If it's truly after the fact, after the bond election, and you're looking at how are the funds being spent, I also don't think that's an advocacy issue. That would be meeting, and again, the operative word is advisory. As long as that committee doesn't have authority to take any action binding on the city, then I'm not particularly concerned about it, other than I want to keep my council members out of trouble by inadvertently having a quorum.
Yeah, the intention there again goes back to the history of the citizens questioning how bond money has been spent. And I think they have, from their perspective, from what I've read, they often think that the city employees are involved somehow. And like you say, it's a contractor. Well, who's that contractor accountable to? At that point. And I think the contractor could be somewhat accountable to this committee.
I haven't had a chance to look at the Austin ordinance that you're referring to. I could probably pull that myself and look at it this week. Probably what you want to think about is how much, how do you want to empower this advisory committee? How much authority do you want to give them in terms of demanding time of your staff and your resources? Do you want to give them the authority to request documents and things like that? Issue came up, do you want to empower them to make recommendations to the council to change the budget, to employ staff, to hire experts, whatever you choose to do? Those things, in my opinion, would always come back to the council. The committee could make recommendations to you, and you just vote up or down on whether or not you think that's a good idea.
And Amanda, I would also say, it's kind of like a parade speech. You're having the same conversations with us. It's just a different audience. So a lot of times it's just a different perspective, but it does take time. Absolutely.
So to determine who's going to be on this committee, do we want to get some sort of town hall where people can come in and maybe it can be a staff-led town hall, no quorum, just staff, where they can kind of get an idea of how the citizens feel, have them ask questions about the bonds, maybe even put their name in the hat for the committee, and then she can bring that to council for us to review. I don't know.
I almost feel like we're talking about two separate things. So whatever the committee is something separate, but I do agree that having town hall meetings right now, since we've already declared the bond election, I'm in favor of
Yeah,
that.
I just didn't know how we were going to determine who's going to be on this committee.
I don't know. I would
I
like
would probably
staff-
put that in your ordinance. I'd put some sort of mechanism for selecting the members of it. Is that
The Austin ordinance does make some specifications.
Do you need some type of direction for the town hall portion?
That would require some direction from that standpoint, and maybe some direction from Carvin. I did find one of his documents that he had submitted about where the boundaries are for council on bond elections and what can and can't be done. And it's certainly not staff's role, nor would it ever be, to advocate one way or the other. We're simply here as a resource to answer questions and provide facts, and facts that are non-emotional, that are driven by what we see in the field, for people to make the right decision, whatever that may be for them. It's not our choice.
So do you want to give us dates? Do we need to put this on the agenda for something for future items, or?
I'm going to actually suggest that, because the posting on our agenda tonight is mainly just about the bond committee, which you've heard about, and you can table that if you choose to. But if you want to talk about the other issues, maybe we'll put that on the agenda.
I move we table the bond committee motion, until the next meeting, so we all have time to think about it, determine our own individual thoughts about who might be a member of such a committee, and consider a town hall meeting to assist with that.
Do we need a second? Second.
Hold on. Do you have some Could we make that a series of meetings, not just one meeting? So we have different neighborhoods with different needs, and so that we can target our presentation accordingly. Okay. Aye.
Yes, we want to put the town hall on there.
Yes, I did get that.
For the next agenda, I want to revisit the family park resident user fees.
Specifically to that point, I would like some input from council regarding whether or not he might see that as a conflict of interest for us to have that on next agenda.
And there's no executive session.
Nope. All right, motion to adjourn.
Sorry, Amanda, did you,
Yeah.
is there an executive session?
No,
No.
ma'am, I didn't have anything planned.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
How did I know that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It is 7:06. This meeting is adjourned.